Presidents.
Invite the Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Mr. Sergey Lavrov. Sir, please take the floor.
Distinguished co-presidents, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome everyone in the room today. We expect that at the opening of this conference, it will fully be in line with the commitments laid out in Article 14 of the CTBT and will allow us to move towards our common goal of the entry into force of the treaty. Unfortunately, our conference is taking place at a very unfortunate incident due to the American side not fulfilling its commitments by failing to provide visas to those Russian delegation members who were to participate in the work of today's conference. Almost all of the participants did not receive their visas, although everything from our side was carried out. Clearly, we need to think that such conferences should be moved to a different platform than New York, where another country would be more responsible in carrying out its commitments. I would like to commend the signing of the treaty by Tuvalu and the ratifying by Thailand and Zimbabwe. Thus, the ratifiers and signatories has reached 184 and 168 respectively. Each signatory is crucial for the CTBT. It is universal, and it recalls the need for those states who have yet to sign to do so, the 8 Annex II states. Unfortunately, in the period since the previous conference in 2017, the situation around the treaty has worsened significantly. The main destabilizing element was the United States refusing to ratify the treaty. As our U.S. colleagues and those who agree with them have said, that this doesn't really change anything practically, but it is actually very destructive for international security and the treaty. The conditions for its entry into force and the United States refusing to ratify undermine the universal nature of the treaty. All efforts must be carried out to create the infrastructure under the treaty, including the international monitoring system. Instead of reviewing its negative decisions regarding the treaty, Washington is attempting to state that the responsibility lies on other states, accusing them of violating the treaty. However, they had no evidence supporting this claim. A country that is clearly unwilling to sign this treaty has no moral grounds to discuss those countries who have already ratified the treaty. They're hiding their possible withdrawal from the treaty is unacceptable. The United States have carried out, have discussed and undermined those mechanisms that have shown their worth and how effective they have been in supporting the denuclearization system. There's a lack of reliability currently in the nuclear non-proliferation regime. The CTBT is playing a fundamental role in ensuring international security and stability. The paradox is that the United States, at the time, were the initiators and founders of the work for the CTBT, but they clearly have already forgotten that they were a part of this. Other states are also at fault here, including those in Annex II. The United States could indeed be the driver for the ratification of the CTBT by showing a good example. Therefore, we call on the U.S. government to review their decision regarding their refusal to sign, or rather to ratify the CTBT, and they must take the appropriate steps to ratify this treaty. And we call on all the other 7 states that are required for the entry into force of this treaty, and we call on them to ratify as soon as possible. They all are responsible for the fate of this document. We value the work of the PTS, of the PrepCom for the CTBT, led by our well-known colleague, Executive Secretary Mr. Sergey. The work to promote the treaty on the international level has been supported by our country since the very beginning, and we all support the work of the Technical Secretariat to work in a balanced manner to ensure all elements of the monitoring system of the CTBT, ensuring the successful functioning of the international monitoring system. This can only be fully implemented after the treaty enters into force. In 2000, the Russian Federation ratified the treaty, and we are of the view that this is the only international agreement on the prohibition of nuclear tests, and there can be no other alternative. Since 1991, the Russian Federation has carried out a moratorium on nuclear tests and has not carried out a single nuclear explosion since that time, and we plan to continue to adhere to this moratorium with the caveat that other nuclear states will also adhere to this moratorium. This full moratorium cannot compensate for the key task of the treaty, which is to ensure that it enters into force. The unilateral responsibilities of states does not also replace the full entry into force of this document. Russia has carried out a commission for the Russian segment of the international monitoring system, and 28 of the 32 objects on the Russian territory have already been launched, and we expect to work further in this direction. Co-chairs, in the final declaration that was carried out in the final declaration of today's conference, we ask that you please include our statement, and we will work actively to ensure that all steps are carried out in the entry into force of the treaty. I thank you.
I wish to thank the Foreign Minister Lavrov for his important statement.